Hi everyone, if you're looking to feel better, happier, in the flow, and at peace with all that you do, then do we have the Heart Intelligence Show for you. Today I'll be talking with Howard Martin, one of the founders of HeartMath with Doc Childre, and the co-author of the HeartMath Solution, considered a definitive work on the intelligence of the heart, and his latest work, Heart Intelligence. And that's just what we'll be talking about today, about connecting with the intuitive guidance of the heart to help you be more coherent, on purpose, and in harmony with your heart and mind and all that you do. That plus we'll talk about card table antics, dogs and horses, the power of freeze frame, how to change the world, and why in the world hiking by yourself in the Santa Cruz mountains just might make them taller than they already are. So welcome to the show, Howard. Are you ready to shine?
Michael, I'm ready. I hope I can match your level of enthusiasm and excitement. Yeah, I'm very pleased to be with you today, and I want to say hello to everyone who's listening and watching this broadcast wherever you are, whenever you are around the world, really.
I think your excitement's pretty high, so I'm going to give it a mighty woohoo!
Okay.
So before we dive right into things, I've got to ask, have you been on any great hikes lately?
Oh, yes. I go on a hike every Sunday. I go up into the HeartMath Institute facility, Institute of HeartMath facility. It's 160 acres in the Santa Cruz mountains. The predominant tree there is the redwood tree, and I hike in those mountains, and it's absolutely gorgeous, beautiful, good for my health, and certainly, regenerative in so many different levels. It's one of the things that I enjoy doing most.
I love that area. In fact, we have a storage unit. My wife and I would stuff in it for 5 years now. Since we got married, all of our stuff made it out there. We never did. We fell in love with the redwoods, and we know we're going to be called back at some point. There's such an energy of the redwoods and the life in that forest that's just, it's beyond palpable.
Yeah, well, it certainly is. And, a lot of the trees were cut, as many people know. There are parks where the oldest trees are still left, many of the oldest trees, which is really, really fortunate. And I applaud those people at the turn of the century that decided these things needed to be preserved. And, there are redwood trees within 15 minutes of my house that are well over 2,000 years old, between 2,000 and 3,000 years old. And there are redwood trees in my yard at my house that are younger. They're what they call the second growth redwoods. And one day I was sort of standing there looking at these 3 redwood trees, and I said, this is amazing. I own 3 redwood trees. The next thing that happened was that I realized, no, you don't own them at all. They just happen to be on this piece of land that you are on, but you don't own these trees. They have that sort of power about them where they radiate their own, beingness in a way.
So I'm going to definitely double back. I want to understand all of the terms in proper order, but I can't resist asking, is there I know it exists, but is there a way to test for coherence between yourself and the redwoods? Because they have such an energy to them that it seems like everything around them gets in sync.
Well, I don't know about between us and the redwoods yet, even though a lot of the HeartMath research today is on looking at the energetic connectivity between all living systems. But there's an experiment going on now of monitoring, the energy in the redwoods. You can read about some of that on the HeartMath.org website. Mm-hmm. And what they're looking at are changes that occur in the Earth's energetic fields, geomagnetic fields, ionosphere. Those fields are impacted by solar activity, and they're looking at fluctuations and changes in the actual energetics within these trees themselves. Sounds kind of odd, sounds kind of bizarre, kind of out there, but it's really designed not just as sort of a novelty science experiment in any way. It's designed to show that everything's energetic. Everything connects energetically. The trees are connecting with the energetics of the earth. We are too. We're connecting with the trees. It's designed really to begin to show more and more about this energetic connectivity, which I think is an important understanding for the future of our world.
I couldn't agree more. I'm not sure if you know it or not, but my wife and I, we wrote the bestsellers Barefoot Running and Barefoot Walking, helping people strip out of their shoes and connect with the earth and what that feels to be connected.
Yeah, it's a wonderful feeling, and it's important. And there are energetics within the earth itself that I believe that you're probably sensing through the feed or however you do it. But we certainly know that the earth is a living system with its own energetic fields. It's amazing, what we live on, in a sense.
So let's go from there, and let's go back in time a little bit. And I want to understand how you went, and this is quite a few years ago at this point, from playing rock and roll in North Carolina to diving into the heart.
Oh, you're going way back in time, aren't you?
I am. I'm
Yeah.
taking it back.
Well, let's go back 40 some years now. Early in my life, music was my passion. Started playing drums when I was 9 years old. By the time I was in my early 20s, I was playing with people that had records out.
Hmm.
Along the way in my early 20s is when I met Doc Childre, the man who founded HeartMath. Doc became, my mentor, my friend, an essential, person to guide me through life. And he used to talk to me way back then about heart, and about heart being more than certainly just a sentiment, or certainly, the soft and fluffy characterizations of heart. But he talked about it in context of it being an intelligence, and it being an internal guidance system that linked us to intuition. It linked us to a larger part of our own self that was a part of who we really were, and an intelligence that needed to be fully developed. He talked about those things to me in different ways 40 some years ago. So I had an interest in personal growth and spiritual growth while I was a rock musician. Those two worlds finally couldn't exist together. It was the distractions of being a rock musician and the lifestyles associated with that were really out of sync with what my heart was trying to tell me to do. So over time, and it was not easy, I made a choice to actually leave the music business and to just let all that go, and to put first things first, and to start working on being a better Howard Martin. And so that led me to deeper exploration of what became, known as heart intelligence. In my own heart, I found that there was this intelligence. So Doc, myself, and others were in this self-exploration process. We did this for 15 years in obscurity in eastern North Carolina. We did not have an ambition of being an organization. I did not have even the conceptual framework of me being an author and a speaker. The things that have happened to me today just wasn't even in the holographic thought. Just working on ourselves, exploring consciousness, exploring how we could be better people. I think something about the purity of that and the lack of distraction created, certainly a strong energetic draw. And over time, it became obvious from others that we needed to take what we'd learned and begin to share it with the world. But it couldn't be an ambition-driven project. It had to be coming from care, from really care about people and care about serving the world as we could tell was going through this transitory time. So in 1991, we came to California, merged with some people out here that we'd met. We started our nonprofit, the HeartMath Institute. We did not have investment money. We did not have a business plan. We had us, we had our belief, and we had our commitment, a caring commitment to do what we could to contribute to helping to change the world in a positive way. That's where the beginnings were. So the transition was, 8 years between not being a rock musician to the start of HeartMath. Really living in obscurity, living very poor in many ways, not having a lot of external stimulation. Today, HeartMath has grown over these 25 years into an organization that has a global footprint. We've done amazing things in the world and have changed millions of lives. Our scientific research is something that we're known for, but there's also the whole HeartMath system of tools and techniques and technology, all underpinned with the scientific research that has really changed the way people see heart and recharacterized or repositioned heart in a modern context, allowing it to now become essential, not just sentimental, not just philosophical, not just spiritual. So that's a pretty short description of a very long story, but
I like it. If we go back to 91, we're talking about really here a decision that was made, no pun intended, on heart. This is something you felt called, that you had to do, not something that your head was telling you, oh, this is what we should do. So going back to 91, at that time to be talking about heart intelligence, it was a complete unknown. And so you really, though you had been working on this for quite a while, it really sounds like a leap of faith that you were taking at the time. And so I'm wondering, what was your sense of faith, or what was going to come out of this when you stepped off that cliff?
Well, it was a big cliff to step off of, moving from North Carolina, giving up everything we had there, starting something new that was completely unknown. But we had a strong belief. We knew we'd experienced something inside ourselves. And when we started HeartMath, we didn't know where it would go. We were just following our own intuitive guidance and direction. And Doc was very wise in pointing out that, if things don't work out, then, we still got what we built inside ourselves, and that's what's most important. So the enthusiasm was there. It honestly, Michael, felt like an adventure. It felt exciting. It felt adventurous. And, like I said, I had no idea where it would go. I could not have imagined what happened, after that. But it was an exciting time. And I think that belief, that power of committed belief was all we needed, to get this thing off the ground. And it was real. It was palpable. It wasn't just a pie in the sky, blue sky approach. We were very serious about what we were doing and knew that there were risks involved, but it was an adventure.
I like it. Woohoo!
Yeah.
So what exactly is HeartMath, and where does that term come from?
Well, the words heart and math usually don't end up in the same sentence, much less the same word. But it's a word Doc Childre, used back then, and he knew that people had an understanding of heart in a general way. If you ask someone about heart, when they finally start talking about it, they start talking about the emotional qualities of heart, about spiritual connection to heart, about heart being about love and care and appreciation, things like that. So people understood that. But what he felt was lacking was a grounded understanding of heart. So math in this context does not mean mathematical equations or numbers. It's just a term that would represent something solid, something proven, something empirical, something grounded. Because what we wanted to do was, again, take heart out of just the well-respected confines of spirituality and philosophy and put it in the street where people needed it the most. So it needed that grounded component. It needed to get solid so that it wasn't just up in the sky, it was down into daily living.
That makes sense. So maybe we'll go from there and we'll talk about HRV, or heart rate variability, something I love to geek out on.
All right. We'll geek out on that. So how do we ground something like heart? Well, we knew we needed to build a bridge, and the bridge we chose to use was science. We recognize that science carries a tremendous amount of weight in society, that when something is proven scientifically, it becomes empirical, therefore the power of belief increases. So we use science as a bridge to try to explain heart, explain what people sensed about heart, what they intuitively felt about heart, and what was really going on. So to do that, we began to do biophysical research. We wanted to look at the physical heart and see what we could learn about it and its functions that we didn't know. Surprisingly, we found bits and pieces of research scattered throughout the research literature showing, in essence, that the heart had a mind of its own. It was acting differently than the commands of the brain would dictate. It had its own sort of innate intelligence inside it. It was manifesting in different ways. So we began to explore that, and we found that the heart was, in fact, sending information to the brain and to the rest of the body. It did it in 4 ways. There was a neurological communication, a biophysical communication, a hormonal communication, and the heart created an electromagnetic field that was sending information. How do you decode all this information exchange? Well, we found a medical and scientific discipline called heart rate variability analysis. What that is just measuring the timing between heartbeats. It's not measuring the same thing that a fitness monitor would measure when it's showing you your heart rate. It's really measuring the timing between the heartbeats. You can think of it this way. The heart pumps, it pumps out, and then there's a time where it reloads, and then it pumps again, then it reloads again. Well, between this pump and this pump, it could be, say, 0.326 seconds. But hey, between the next two, something completely different, 0.235, and it goes on and on and on. So when you map this out, you start getting a picture of the rhythmic beating patterns of the heart. Now, this is important. Heart rate variability is a measurement of the synchronization taking place in our autonomic nervous system. That part of our nervous system influences about 90% of every function in our body. So when you look at the autonomic nervous system, you're seeing a picture of a lot of different things taking place physiologically. Heart rate variability offers an excellent picture of that. The other thing we discovered was that heart rate variability, of course, changes all the time. It's supposed to. When we move, when I'm talking, it's changing right now. But what scientists didn't know that we figured out was that one of the main inputs that changed heart rate variability was our emotions. Mm-hmm. What we're feeling changes heart rate variability. For example, if we're feeling frustrated, what you would see is a very jagged and irregular heart rate variability pattern. The heart is speeding up and slowing down and speeding up and slowing down rather erratically.
Trying to get our attention.
Yeah, when that's happening, it's putting a lot of stress on the nervous system. It's sending information from the heart back to the brain that begin to shut down higher perceptual centers in the brain. It's causing the release of hormones in our body that we don't want too much of, like too much cortisol or too much adrenaline.
If I pause you there, in essence, when we get in that state of I guess we would call it incoherence, in that jagged state there, we're creating a fight or flight or a sympathetic response in the body.
Well, it's both sympathetic and parasympathetic. Sympathetic speeding things up. The parasympathetic's trying to put the brake on it, and they're fighting. It's the example we've used many years at HeartMath. It's like driving your car with one foot on the accelerator and one foot on the brake. There's a lot of wear and tear on the body. That's the bad news. When we shift emotional state, let's say we shift from frustration to feeling instead appreciation.
Mm-hmm.
The heart rhythms begin to change. Heart rate variability patterns start to change. They become more sine wave-like looking if you saw them on the graph. Heart speeding up, then naturally it's releasing and slowing back down, then naturally speeding up again. So you have this beautiful synchronization taking place inside the body. Good for the nervous system, good for the physical heart, and it's sending information from heart back to brain that are opening up the higher perceptual centers of our brain, allowing us to see the big picture, allowing us to have full access to our intelligence capacity. So if you think about it, when we're angry or frustrated, we don't see big pictures. We don't solve the world's problems that way. We're myopically focused on something, on a problem or something that's triggered us. When we're in a more caring, loving, appreciative state, that's when we notice things about life. That's when the screen opens up. That's when we see things that we didn't see before about ourselves, about others, about the environment we're in. Perception shifts happen very quickly. So we use heart rate variability as a way of measuring the quality of communication taking place between the heart, the brain, and the rest of the body. And we developed technology that consumers have now. We developed technology where people can learn to change their heart rate variability patterns, to optimize the heart's communication to the brain and the rest of the body. And we have the Inner Balance Trainer, which is an amazing app that runs on iOS devices. You get it from the Apple store, and then you buy a sensor from us or Amazon or somewhere. We have a handheld unit called M-Wave 2, which is for people that don't have an iPhone. And we have M-Wave Pro, which is a desktop version that all kinds of people use, from psychologists to therapists to athletic performance trainers. So all this technology is measuring the quality of that heart-brain-body communication.
A lot of what you're saying, in essence, is maybe what we call the state of coherence. And I'm wondering if you can explain a little bit more of what that is, and then dive into how coherence even affects those around us.
Michael, coherence is a highly ordered state, both physiologically and psychologically. At a physiological level, when the heart's rhythmic beating patterns are smooth and ordered, all the major body systems synchronize to the heart, the master rhythm maker. That means brain function, digestion, respiration, immune response, hormonal response. So when the coherent state is there, when we're in a higher level of coherence, we're in a very healthy, high-performance state. It's not a sleepy time state. It's a state where we're very acutely aware. Things like reaction speed time and visual field improve when we're in higher coherence. At a psychological level, coherence is triggered by sustained positive emotion. And once we're in the coherent state, those emotions continue to become more readily available. So when we're taking that walk in nature, like you talked about, when we're out in the woods, when we're enjoying things, we're appreciative, our bodies naturally go into a more coherent state. But then there's day-to-day. There's the busyness of life. There's the speed of change is happening so very, very quickly. It's hard for us to maintain certain levels of internal coherence. We get jerked around by our schedules, by our days. So at HeartMath, we have techniques and the technology designed to help people create a new baseline in coherence within themselves and learn to increase their coherence levels. That's what the Inner Balance Trainer and the M-Waves do. They train people to become more coherent. So there's great benefit from that, physiologically and psychologically. And take it one step further, when we're in that highly ordered coherent state, to me, that's when we actually merge more of our spirit with our humanness. That's when we access more of the higher capacity that we have, something that's larger than our ordinary self. That's when intuition begins to flow. Coherence is a platform or a landing place for that kind of intelligence to enter the human system.
Very, very cool. And I want to dive more into that. I'm curious how much coherence of oneself, like if you go to sleep and you're in a very good space, if you're in kind of that coherent state and your partner comes to bed, is one going to sync up with the other given that?
Yeah, well, there's certainly research we've done showing, there's this connection you can measure through looking at heart rate variability between living systems. The great story, the one that I use in my live shows, is about Josh and Mabel, a boy and a dog. Mabel happened to be my dog, and she was this beautiful Labrador retriever. And at that time, there was an after-school program for the the children of HeartMath staff. And so those children would go there for an after-school program. Dr. Roland McCrady's son, Josh, used to go to that program, and he and the dog bonded. Roland, the scientist, observed that one day, decided that he wanted to see if there could be an experiment done. So he brought Mabel to his research lab. He placed a portable heart rate recorder, variability recorder on the dog, but one on his son. He put them in separate rooms. Then he instructed his son to walk into the room where Mabel was, but not to touch her. So the graph is amazing. So Josh walks into the room, and it shows he goes into coherence at the same exact time Mabel goes into coherence. And they sync up in a coherent heart rhythm state without touching because of what? Because of the love they shared between the boy and the dog. And that's just one experiment. We saw the same thing repeated with horses. Another amazing experiment done with our equipment by another organization brought 40 people into a room. They divided them into groups of 4. They placed 4 people at a table, each, and they had 10 tables. Mm-hmm. They hooked them up to M-Wave Pros, the desktop version. 3 of the people at each table knew HeartMath techniques. The 4th didn't. The 3 people were instructed before the experiment started to send love and care to the 4th person, to get coherent and then send love and care to the 4th person. In every single instance, in all 10 tables, when the 3 people became coherent, the 4th person who was doing nothing became coherent. The coherence levels increased in the 4th person even though they were not practicing any techniques or doing anything. They were sitting in the field environment of these other 3 people who were, in fact, generating more heart coherence.
I think this is huge, and this speaks to something we'll get more to in just a little bit of how we can use this in society, how we can use this in our jobs, how we can use this in our families. Before we do that, a minute ago you were talking about helping us sync up more. It was kind of going in the spiritual direction of syncing up more with our humanness, I believe it was called. Mm-hmm. And I want to talk about non-local intuition and about, there was Dee Radin who was doing experiments on being able to perceive things in advance of them taking place. And I believe this experiment cannot be overstated at just how mind-blowing the results were that you got.
Yeah, we looked at Dean's study. Dean is a friend of ours, the Institute of Noetic Sciences. We looked at a study, or Dr. Roland McCrady did, and he wanted to take that study further. So what we did was we had a whole group of test subjects, and we had them wired up from head to toe. There were brainwave activity, heart rate variability, skin response, lots of different physiological measurements were coming back from the body. Here's the way the experiment worked. We built on what Dean had done. They sat in front of a computer that was loaded with images. Some of the images were evocative, beautiful images. The others were horrific. The computer was randomly selecting images. It was not programmed. It was a random selection. The test subject would sit in front of a computer. They would be instructed to press a button. They press the button. There's a 6-second delay, and all of a sudden the picture shows up. Picture stays on the screen for 3 seconds, goes away. There's a 10-second delay. Then the prompt comes again, push the button. And this was repeated over and over again. Mm-hmm. So tons of data taken back from these test subjects. And when they began to analyze the data, there were some amazing results that you're referring to. One thing they found was, and this is the most amazing result, is that in many or most cases, the physiological response to the upcoming picture was happening 6 seconds before the picture emerged. The body was doing what it would do if the picture was there, but it wasn't there.
Before the computer even chose.
Correct. Before the computer even chose. The picture was not there. Then as they began to do more analysis on what was happening inside the body, they found that the first responder to the picture that wasn't chosen yet was not our brain. It was our heart. About a second and a half later, the brain began to respond to the picture that wasn't there. And then a second and a half before the picture actually came up on the screen, the two coupled together at a frequency level. So it was heart-brain synchronization picture. Now, this study is amazing. It's published in the Journal of Alternative and Complementary Medicine. Mm-hmm. It's such a big study. It was published in 2 parts. You can get it on the heartmath.org website if you're the kind of person that wants to see the study. Very in-depth, expensive study. Now, when I read studies like that, I usually go right to the summary page. And in that summary page, they said that it appears as if our body has a sensing mechanism that's constantly scanning for future events. They also propose that it's something that's always been there, that is there, but we're just not aware of it. So it's part of the new awareness that we're having is understanding what we really can perceive. And that, intuition in this context goes beyond the boundaries of time and space. It goes nonlinear. It's not bound by the time. It's not bound by any of those same parameters that we see in Newtonian physics. This is an amazing study, and it implies an awful lot about us, the human being, our capacities, and about fields of information that are accessible to us.
What do you take away from it on a spiritual perspective? Because I don't even think we can grasp how big it means, throwing out all the rules of what we thought we knew, doesn't it?
It really does. Well, I mentioned this, in the new book that you showed at the beginning of the show, Heart Intelligence. There are 4 of us that wrote that book together. There you go. Doc Childre, Howard Martin, Deborah Rosman, Roland McCready. Now, in the second half of the book is where Doc Childre, HeartMath's founder, writes his chapters. And he actually writes about things that we've never written about before at HeartMath that he hasn't. He talks about our soul. He talks about this aspect of us that's larger than our ordinary humanness, that really is feeding our system. I suggest you read the book rather than me try to describe it. It's an amazingly beautiful chapter that he has in that book about our soul and our spirit. So I think we have our ordinariness, we have our day-to-day, we have our personalities. You're Michael, I'm Howard. Our personalities are based on experiences we've had in our life, and we've developed these certain constructs in our mind about the way things are, the way things aren't, about what's good, about what's bad. All those things are part of us and our personality. But there is something larger than that guides us and directs us. There's aspects of ourselves that we get into at times. Sometimes people have found themselves in unusual or transcendental experiences, meditation, certain times when life slows down and clarity comes in, things like that. And I think what the study shows and what I'm proposing in this part of our conversation is that we are coming into accessing more of this on a more normal day-to-day level. These are becoming not just extraordinary spiritual experiences, but practical day-to-day experiences. In our training programs, we have a module in most of our training programs on what we call practical intuition. That's trying to demystify intuition, trying to take it out of this, it's only when you discover some big discovery or when you have this massive aha, but showing that intuition is there all the time. Intuition is things like choosing what words to use in a sensitive conversation. Intuition is something like determining who to hire after you've interviewed 5 people that all have similar resumes. What's the feeling that you get about this person and whether they're going to do the job and fit your culture? Intuition shows up everywhere in our lives, and we can learn to become sensitive to that. So take it into practical, take it into to that type of understanding. I think intuition shows up in another way I'll just give as a practical example is in parenting. I'm not a parent, but when I observe parents and the sensitivities they have to a child's needs, to understand what that child's really feeling. All that is, to me, examples of our intuitive intelligence. So as we're evolving now at super high speed through this dimensional shift in consciousness that's so pervasive in our world today, we are developing new capacities. And they don't have to be looked at as extrasensory capacities or psychic capacities. They're capacities where we're developing new sensitivities within ourselves that can provide more fulfillment for us, more guidance in our life about how to live our lives, more connection with others, and certainly more connection with the whole world and beyond our world.
Thank you. If we jump from there, and we're talking about tying in with others here, you wrote a section of the book on social coherence. I'm wondering if you can explain what that is, and is that part of the feedback loop that's going on right now that is making us more aware of this and being able to use it more and being aware and being able to use it more?
Yeah, you've described it well. It's a chapter that I wrote in the book about the emergence of social coherence, about people coming together. Sure, we see tremendous amount of polarity right now and division and horrific things that are happening around the world. But if we step back and look, you also see a whole lot of coming together, a whole lot of cooperation, a whole lot of new thought and new thinking around how people work together. So social coherence is about how we collaborate, how we connect at a heart level through the intelligence of the heart and what we do with that. And I point out examples in that chapters about some of the amazing things people are saying now about, some of the corporate business leaders, talking about the power of appreciation and its essentialness in their organization. I quote the guy who was the CEO of Costco upon retiring when they asked him were there going to be any changes, and he said yes, there were. He said the only thing that I'm hoping for is that they preserve our culture, because culture is not the only thing in business. Is not the only thing in business. It's everything in business. And there's a lot of things like that. I also share about another study done where they were having people perceive a hill, and their perception of the hill changed depending upon whether they were with someone or not. And the hill looked less steep when they were with another person than it did by themselves, and it even looked less steep when they were with a person that they knew and liked. So as we begin to see that, as we work together and we bring our hearts together and bring our intelligence together, that's part of, as you said, the feedback loop. The byproduct that's happening is a recognition that we are in a shared world and have shared responsibilities. And I think it's one of the most beautiful things that's emerging in our world today is moving beyond the old paradigms of, sort of ambition and competition to more about collaboration and care. And that is really happening. And in the book, I share more stories and more things like that, illustrating that this is not just a philosophical wish. This is actually going on in our world today, and more is on the way.
I love it. So you talk, one of the authors, I'm not sure which one it was, the co-authors in the book, gives the story of Bill Russell and being in the flow, Boston Celtics. Everything's working so well. You can see the ball before it gets it to him. He doesn't even care whether it's win or lose. I think he just wants that moment to last. And it's almost like he's in love, in bliss, even with the opponents. They're him, he's them. How do we start to bring a little bit more coherence either to ourselves or to the group around us when we get to work and we no longer want it to be a kill or be killed pit bull situation, but really we do want this to be a more compassion for everybody we're working with?
Well, that's the big question. I can certainly tell you what I do, and
yes, please.
Things that I share in my seminars and live shows. I start my morning with spending a little time. I just build it into my schedule, 15 to 20 minutes every morning, just sitting in the heart, focusing in the heart, breathing through this area of my heart, activating some positive emotions, and trying to bring in what I want to describe now is the feeling of ease, E-A-S-E. I had to say that because I'm a Southerner. Ease. I better spell it. So ease is not just take it easy. It's not this laissez-faire state. It's this sort of liquid feeling where it's taking the rough edges and corners off of life. It's really opening the door for more of that higher intuitional contact to take place. So I breathe the feeling of ease, and then I go about my day. Now, there are other things I do very naturally during the course of my day. There's something that I do called prep. Prep means preparing, in a sense. But, the day gets fast. I'm moving from this. I was in a meeting this morning. I'm back in my office. I'm answering emails. I'm on the phone with my friend Bruce Lipton, who's going to do an event in Mexico that I helped him set up for him. Back and forth. And then, now it's time to get on the show with Michael. So there's all this stuff going on. So in the moments in between these things, I go back and refocus in the heart again. I go back and make sure that I'm breathing through that area, reconnecting with that part of myself.
What's a quick technique, a quick coherence technique to get you back in there quickly?
Let's do it right now. Everybody who's watching and listening, let's do this together. It's 3 simple steps. You can close your eyes if you'd like. First step is called heart focus. I want you to focus your attention right in the area in the center of your chest, in the area of the heart. If you want to put your hand there, you can. But just feel like the energy from the head going down now into the heart. Now, step 2 is called heart-focused breathing. What I want you to do is breathe naturally and normally, but a little deeper than you normally do. And as you breathe, I want you to pretend as if that breath is flowing in and out right through the area in the center of your chest, the area of your heart. Now continue with your heart-focused breathing. And now we're going to go to the third and final step, which is the most important step. I want you to feel a positive heart-related emotion. Don't don't push too hard, just feel. Maybe it could be a feeling of appreciation for the good things you have in your life. Or maybe just feel the care and love you have for someone or something in your life. Or maybe just feel that feeling of ease and calm. Life's really okay kind of a feeling. Things are all right. Continue with your heart-focused breathing and just breathe that feeling, whatever has come to you now, in and out through the area in the center of your chest. Okay. That's 3 steps. Heart focus, heart-focused breathing, activation of a heart feeling. Now, you can do that technique eyes closed like we did in our time together now. You can do it eyes open. You can do it walking from one building to another in your office complex. You can do it driving in your car, going from one place to another, or from home to work. There are other more nuanced things that I do. One of those that I really work on is being present, really listening to people, not just drifting off, not planning what's next, not being so focused on, hey, in an hour I'm going to have to do this media interview, and I'm in a meeting right now, but thinking about the media interview. It's like really try to be present. It's an act of kindness. And I always try to demonstrate as much kindness as I can. Now, it doesn't always go that way. And there's times when I do feel stressed and I do feel upset about something, and maybe I do say things in a way that I wish I hadn't said them. How do you do that? What do you do then? Well, go right back, heart focus breathing, activation of a heart feeling. Try to shift it. Try not to let it linger. Try to let it go ahead and move on out. It's not denying the emotions, it's transforming them.
What do you do if you feel fear?
Well, fear is a pretty tough one to get over. Fear has to be looked at in steps. Fear is a natural reaction at a physiological level to events in life. There are many things that can trigger fear. We get triggered by an email that we think is going to be taking something away from us or something like that. So fear is a difficult one to do. So just look at fear as something you take in steps and stages, that you add a little heart to when you feel fear. Try to go back and find your own self-security, which exists with your own best friend, your heart, and find that place inside where you can find a bit of solidness. You can also breathe through the area of the heart and also sort of feel that solar plexus energy associated with fear being sort of embraced by and dissolved by the energetics of the heart.
You said go to a place that brings you, I think it was strength or solace. What does that mean, or what does that look like?
Well, I think your strength is your own core authenticity. It's when you feel that sort of self-security that you're okay, that you sort of draw upon your collective wisdom in that context, what you really know about yourself as a human being. And you move a little bit beyond the insecurity of the moment when you reconnect with that part of yourself. Everybody's a good person. Everybody has a good heart. We've all done really good things in our lives. Despite what we haven't done or the things that we have regrets about, there are many things that have made us who we are, that made us good people. I suggest that most anybody listening to this program right now is a person that cares. They care about themselves, they care about their well-being, and I also suggest they probably care about our world. So draw back upon that. Draw back upon the fact that you are a caring person, that you have done a lot of work on yourself along the way.
Thank you. I want to jump in just a minute to what HeartMath is doing now. Before then, what's the importance of self-love or self-compassion in this?
Well, nothing's more powerful right now than that. I found that, at the end of my live shows, a lot of times I'm just looking more intuitively to say what I want to say at the close of this. And what's come to me many times lately is to say to my audiences is that if you don't remember anything else that I said all day, is one thing I do want you to remember is please have compassion for yourself. It's because we're all doing the best we can, Michael. We're going through an unprecedented era in human history. And we are...
What does that mean?
More change happening in less amount of time than ever before. Mm-hmm. Change is dynamic. We live in an era where disruption is the constant. In business, in society, in our own personal lives, disruption is ongoing. And that disruption is because there's a new world unfolding in the midst of the old one. Consciousness is changing itself. The field of consciousness that we draw from to create reality is actually morphing as well. So we're drawing new information in, and that new information is pushing out the old, trying to let the new come in. And that can be very disconcerting. So there's going to be times when we don't feel good about ourselves. We don't feel like we're doing enough. We don't feel like we're behaving the way that we should. We don't feel like we're giving enough. We don't feel like what we've done is actually helping anything. All those are the thoughts. Those are the unmanaged mind thoughts that
you
keep
just described my
up.
Day.
Yeah. Go back and say, wait a minute, dude, hold on, have a heart talk with yourself. You're a good person doing good things, and you've done a lot in the world. Be patient with yourself. Be kind and have that self-compassion. Really, it's so important. When people can activate some self-compassion, not only is it good for them, in fact, it is tremendously good for the individual. It's one of the most regenerative things we can do. But it also, in my opinion, puts out an energetic into the energetic field environment we all draw from that's going to make it easier for people, other places that we'll never meet or know, to find some compassion for themselves. So it's both a service to yourself and a service to the world to try to find some compassion. Compassion, as Doc Childre states it, is the highest frequency in the love spectrum. It's a part of love and the highest frequency in that whole spectrum. And in the book, he breaks down the difference between compassion, real compassion, sympathy, and empathy, and shows the different frequencies or different ways in which they are different. And it's a beautiful chapter, and I draw from it a lot. So self-compassion is a form of self-love, especially activated when you find yourself down, especially down on yourself. Self-judgment is one of the most debilitating things that we do. Self-compassion is probably the most regenerative thing we do.
Fantastic. So let's go from there and talk briefly about what is HeartMath, because we were talking before the show, and you said there's a lot more going on than's even in the book. So I'm excited to hear more about this.
There's a lot of changes happening here. We've been doing this now for 25 years. And I think we've done really well. We built a solid baseline of science, of new understanding about heart. We've touched the lives, as I mentioned earlier, of millions of people around the world in meaningful ways. We've got books, we've got websites, we've got all the sophistication that's there. But now it needs to coalesce a bit more into really how do we create more of a movement of adding heart to everything in the world. So we're changing our branding to add heart. Think about the plus sign and the heart symbol. That's going to be our new logo.
Oh, wow.
It's about how do you add heart to anything you do. Adding heart never takes away from what you're doing. It's just putting more care into something, or more patience, or more kindness, or more coherence. It manifests different ways, but the concept of adding heart. So whether you're a mother working with your child, add more heart. Whether you're a Sunday school teacher teaching a Sunday school class, whether you're a health professional, adding heart right before you go into talking to your patient, adding heart in business right before that meeting. It's just adding heart along the way all the time. So to do that, we're going to be changing our branding. We're going to be bringing out some new products, some new programs, new ways of going about things. We're going to be much more active in the externalization of what we do and drawing more people into a community of sorts, a movement of sorts, where we're going to network that together a lot better than we have and really bring about a synergy and a sense of family and connection between people. And that's what's most exciting for me, in case you can't tell, is that I'm really excited about doing what I can to facilitate this sense of movement in the world of adding more heart. And some of the new things that people want to, they website and sign up for Heartfully Speaking, which Heartfully Speaking is a bi-weekly little newsletter that shows up, and new things are going to be there, and you'll see new things. Sign up to receive information from us at heartmath.com and or heartmath.org, and you can watch this next unfoldment of HeartMath.
What's the part that you are, well, for lack of another term, geeking out or most excited about right now?
Well, mostly I'm excited about the possibility of how we create new and different experiences that relate to heart and relate to HeartMath. And that gets into brand new technologies. It gets into things like virtual reality, augmented reality. These are things we're all exploring right now. It gets into creating a sense of a game that associates with adding heart. It's not really a game like a traditional game. It's all new technology that's available now that we're learning to look at and learning how we're going to harness this into what's next. On the science side, I'm really excited about the research that the Institute is doing around energetic connectivity and around social coherence. Our ultimate goal, what we really want, is global coherence, and we have a project for that, Global Coherence Initiative, where we're measuring changes occurring in the Earth's energetic fields and our relationship to those changes.
For example, is that like the Washington, D.C. study many years ago where they got people together, they meditated, crime rates, murder rates dropped?
Well, they were looking at statistical data from that. What we're looking at is actually energetic data. What we've done is we've placed sensor sites around the world. We've created what's called the Global Coherence Monitoring System. Eventually, we will have 12 sites. Now we have 6. These sites are measuring changes in the Earth's energetic fields, the geomagnetic field and the ionosphere. Yep. It's now well known that these fields are dynamic and changing, and as they change, human health and behavior changes. So we're looking at how does that happen? What's the connection between these fields and humans? And And we're also testing a hypothesis is that we are influencing the fields, that the 7 billion of us living here are all feeling and thinking. We are putting in an energetic that can actually be impacting the Earth's fields, and therefore those fields impact us differently. Now, these sites are located around the world. We have one in Northern California, one in Northern Canada. We have a third site in Lithuania. The fourth site is in Saudi Arabia. The fifth site is in New Zealand. The sixth site is in South Africa, and more sites are coming. And these sites are all feeding data and information back to our research labs. So yeah, it's like the experiment that was done many years ago that the TM people did looking at effect, but now we want to see cause. We want to understand the mechanics of all that. How does this occur? How does this happen? So that you can go to the HeartMath.org website and become a member of Global Coherence Initiative. There are about, I think, close to 100,000 people around the world from well over 100 countries that are members. Membership is free, and then you become part of this grand experiment, and you get information about what's going on around all that. That's all cool, and that's all very exciting. And so we're tying these things together. Global coherence with social coherence to what HeartMath has done with our technology and our training programs, bringing all that together and putting it into an ad-heart context so that it synchronizes better. It's easier for people to see what we do, easier for people to participate, for people to participate in a meaningful way that they see benefit in their lives, but also can see the effects they're having on the well-being of others.
I have a really weird way of describing who you are. Please forgive me, but it's kind of a modern heart-based Ghostbusters, in that you're going to be the first ones to have the information when change is taking place on the planet, when frequency is changing, so to speak, when we get the shift. You're going to have the data on the shift, whatever that looks like.
Well, we will be one of them, I think, that will have some meaningful data, and there's a lot more to do there. There are many amazing people in the world doing some really, really cool things. We're just trying to do our part. One of the things that I've always loved about HeartMath, and especially about how Doc Childre, the founder, has always positioned this, and he always reminds me and others about this, is that we never want to be seen as the biggest deal on the planet. We're not trying to be the leader. We are trying to be collaborative. We want to be friendly facilitators to all the great things that are happening in the world. So it's non-competitive with us. And to me, one of the beautiful things about Add Heart is it's non-competitive. It doesn't take away from anything. It adds, So if somebody's into mindfulness, great, Add Heart. Somebody's into a different type of spiritual practice, some personal growth thing, they into some Tony Robbins or something. That's all fine. Add heart to that. You will benefit from adding heart to whatever you do. So the neutrality of what we've done is one of the beauties of it, and I'll give Doc credit for that, of not letting us get into ambition, letting us get into competition. We want to be collaborative.
Beautiful. I've got just a few quick wrap-up questions for you before I let you go, and this could go on for a while. So everybody, I can't recommend Heart Intelligence enough. I love it, I love it, I love it. And I want to go onto your website and check out like the M-Wave myself. There's a lot I'd like to geek out and learn about. I'm fascinated by what you do. I guess the first question as we begin to wrap things up is, I know you mentioned you don't have children personally, but how do we help children either maintain maybe that's the most important thing, maintain the heart connection that they already have?
Well, you teach them about their emotions for one thing. That's lack of education on emotions is one of the major things that takes kids out of their heart. You're right. They're naturally more connected to their heart in the first place. It sort of gets programmed at them through life. They don't learn much about any of that in school, for one thing. Teach them about what they're feeling, about how to regulate their emotions. And, there's if you go to the HeartMath.org website, our nonprofit, there's a whole bunch of things there, all designed for children. There's all kinds of products and programs just for kids. It's an important part of our work. But teach them about their emotions is a simple answer to that question. Get them to understand what they're feeling. The world is so complicated and so crazy for them right now, and they are wired differently than someone my age was when I was young. So they're perceiving things very differently. Recognize that they are perceiving differently, that the hand-me-down sort of programs of how you deal with children today don't work the way they used to. They are coming from a different place. Help them understand themselves. Help them understand what they're feeling, and that's one of the greatest gifts you can give a child today.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. So a question I'd love to ask our guests before the end is, what personally brings you the greatest happiness, or what I call the woohoo factor?
My greatest happiness, gosh. I guess I'm the happiest when I feel like I'm really in alignment with my own mission in life, what I'm supposed to do, and I can see that it's helping and see that there are results from it, and that feels good. And I'll just be honest. I mean, I love to speak live, and I get to speak to large audiences around the world, and it does feel good for me. It makes me happy, makes me joyous when I can feel like I've gone on stage and I've talked to a large group of people and that they got something out of it, that they walked away better and different than they were when I showed up. That is a really magnificent, exciting feeling for me. It's one of the things I love the most.
We'll call that a woohoo.
Okay, and I want to tell you about an event, if I may.
Please.
Listeners, HeartMath only does one event that we actually produce and sponsor a year. One event. And we do it in Mexico, in the Maya Riviera. That's just south of Cancun. We have this location in this really beautiful resort complex, and it's connected to a wellness center. And we invite people once a year to join us there, where myself, Dr. Roland McCready, who's the Director of Research at the Institute, Dr. Deborah Rosman, who's the CEO of HeartMath, and the token non-doctor, the redneck from North Carolina, me, are the presenters. And we bring people from around the world. Only 100 people can come. That's as much as we can take. We start on a Wednesday night, end on a Sunday morning. We combine experiences so that we make it both a learning experience, a vacation, and a spiritual experience. We do training in the morning. Afternoons are free for people to do all kinds of great activities in this beautiful tropical environment. In the evening, we come together for discussion and for meditation. And we do that for several days. It's an amazing experience. I feel so fortunate that I get to do it. This will be my 5th year, and I'm really excited about it. You can go to the HeartMath.com website to find out more. It's not super expensive. It's affordable for many people. It is an all-inclusive, meaning that you get your room and the food and everything else is all-inclusive, as well as your training program for what we need to charge. So we make it as affordable as we can, and it's very special. We share the latest, newest information that we have at HeartMath. We design a program especially for that event to embody and incorporate the thinking of now. So it's sort of almost a premiere to what we're going to do the next year, as we go into the world that we do in Mexico. This will happen the first week in December of this year. Go to the heartmath.org website to find out more. And again, we've got a lot of registrations already, but I'm sure there's still space this far out. And would love, if it feels like it resonates with you, would love to see you there.
Fantastic. Any last words of wisdom you want to share with people?
Yeah, I think that, the main thing is to recognize that we are going through the change that we're going through, that we can certainly see a lot of problems. They're on full display right now. It can be a bit disconcerting at times as we look at things that are happening in the world, and our lives can often be very unpredictable. But I'd like to say that my feeling is everything's moving in the right direction, that we're right on track, that if you can see a trend graph, you could see that, the trend is going up and down across the line, but the trend graph itself is headed in the right direction. I do see a new world emerging in the midst of the one that we have, and I think it's inevitable that this new world is going to be here. I think there is a question that we all have to think about of how hard or how easy is it going to be. And so our collective heart, the collective choices that we make moment to moment, day to day from the heart, are one of the things that are controlling both the timing of when the new world begins to shape itself more and also how easy it is. But never lose your hope about these things. Never see the dark part of the world only. Recognize that there's a lot going on in the world today that's magnificent. We're headed in the right direction. We're right on time. Stay true to yourself, true to your heart. Life will work out.
Woohoo! So I want to thank you so much for being on the show, Howard. This has been just a joy, an honor, and love the work that you're doing.
Well, Michael, thank you. And I want to thank you now for doing this kind of show. This is a labor of love for you, something you're putting out to the world, making your contribution, and having people on to talk and have conversations like this. And thank you for that. Thank you for doing what you do.
Thank you so much. For everyone out there, this is Michael Sandler saying, be well, have fun, get heart intelligence, have hope, and be sure to add heart, and shine bright. Woohoo! Thank you. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like below. Also, leave your comments. Have some real fun with it. Subscribe to our channel where you're going to get more great videos, more interviews coming up. And check out our website, inspirenationshow.com. That's where you'll find tips, blogs, information, videos you won't find anywhere else, and useful and helpful resources to really help you kickstart your life and to shine bright. Thanks so much again. Thank you for your support. Like, comment, subscribe. See the website. Thanks so much and have fun. Of course, shine bright. Woohoo!